Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our panel discussion about suicidal behavior. I'm Aulia Ramadhanty, the chairman for today's panel discussion. It is a real pleasure for me to participate in the opening of this discussion. As we all know that suicidal behavior has been a crucial matter among adolescents nowadays. Now, we have invited 4 panelists in our discussion regarding to suicidal behavior. The discussion will be led by our moderator today, Muhammad Alhan Ananta Putra. Please welcome Muhammad Alhan.
Thank you very much for the occasion. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to meet you all, and welcome to our panel discussion. My name is Muhammad Ananta Putra, and I am the moderator for this panel discussion. We are going to discuss a crucial matter of our nowadays living. It is about suicidal behavior. In this time, we have 4 panelists that will explain and give brief information regarding suicidal behavior. Our first panelist is Mr. Reynaldy Ananda Taufikul Hakim. He is the Rehabilitated, and our second panelist is Mr. Mahendra. He is the parent, and our third panelist is Ms. Olga Amanda Atsari. She is the head of Suicide Prevention Organization. And our last panelist is Mr. Bagus Ramadhan, Psychologist of Batu Medical Center. Without further ado, please welcome our first panelist, Mr. Reynaldy Ananda. For Mr. Reynaldy, the time is yours.
So, good day everyone. I'm Reynaldy Ananda, and I will start from the reason. In my perspective, as an individual who once tried to commit suicide, suicidal behavior is caused by many reasons. Mainly, it is caused by major depression. This state of depression really makes you can't feel good at anything, being pessimistic, and find a way out at any problem. There will be a strong urge to run away from reality. It reaches its worst state when you finally decided to commit suicide and left everything behind. The depression I mentioned above is also due to various reasons. Based on the environment, it can be classified into 3 groups: family environment, school environment, and also social environment. As for the family environment, one of the most common reasons is the incapability to adapt to the household pressure itself. In the school environment, it usually comes from the high demand given to the student. The high demand covers things like the obligation for the student to reach a maximum score. It truly becomes a burden to some students who can't compete with such situation, because when they fail, they will receive consequences they don't wish to get. And lastly is the social environment, which I experienced in the past. The common causes of suicide in this environment usually comes from bullying. At the time, I was bullied for my shortcomings. The bully influenced my mind to hate myself and my existence. I questioned myself, it is worth it or not to continue on living. From such thought, I just wanted to disappear from this world. And then next on, I will try to explain about the behavior of this suicidal behavior. In the case of suicide, it is important to know that those who had the intention will have some pattern or behavior. This abnormal behavior indicates that they are having a high chance of committing suicide. I do experience those behavior in the past. As the one with those behavior, I don't even think those behavior as something abnormal. To me, it is something seems normal because maybe I'm just used to it. Used to this kind of behavior for weeks or even months, or maybe it's also due to my mind and mentality, which are not working fine at the moment. However, the behavior will of course still be visible to other people in their environment. If I can recall correctly, it started when I felt a mixture of negative feelings such as uh, anxiety, insecurity, rage, and maybe sadness. Since then, I'm starting to have a sleep problem. Uh, my sleep time is just so random. I can't even decide whether I want to sleep or not. And then the next thing is about withdrawal behavior. At the time, I just want to avoid any social activities and stay alone at my room. As for the third behavior, I don't really feel like I did, but people surround me say that I did. They say that I'm having a change in personality and then a change in appearance. They say that I look like a living dead. My skin looks so pale and then I behave so insanely. And lastly, I'm starting to do self-harm and making preparation. The kind of self-harm I did at the time is cutting my own hand with cutter. As for making preparation, I don't really did because my parent managed to prevent me from doing so and get me rehabilitated. In the rehabilitation, some of them who make preparation includes buying poison and then buying handgun, rope, and other things that possible to do suicide. And last, I'm going to talk about the solution. Since I'm a rehabilitated person, I think that I can give you some solution that might help you someday. Firstly, I would like to tell the solution from my own perspective, or I can also say as the one who start to feel those behavior I mentioned above. Since to prevent is better than to cure, it's always good not to look down on yourself. You should not think that problem comes without any solution. When you're overwhelmed with the life matters, you just need to take a rest, sleep enough, and eat properly. You should value your life more. It's not something you can throw that easy. And then, when you're feeling depressed, you can do something you actually like. In my case, I usually take my time to sleep and play games. Other people usually eat their favorite foods maybe and then go out for a vacation or something else that make them feel comfortable and better. You also need to throw away those negative thoughts or the urge to suicide. And then if you want to cry, you can also cry because it's also a way to relieve yourself. And secondly, I will tell you some solution you can use if you are the one who met someone with those behavior. If he or she is your acquaintance, you just need to talk to them and ask them what is actually wrong, because usually people with those behavior just need someone to talk to and someone that can understand them well. Your existence should be more than enough. It's suggested for them to be taken to the experts such as the psychologist. If it gets worse, they need to be rehabilitated. I think that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the discussion, Mr. Reynaldy. Next, please welcome our second panelist, Mahendra Dhatta. For Mr. Mahendra, the time is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Alhan. So, I'm a father of a boy who was suicidal thought last year. My beloved son tells me that he wanted to quit living from this world. As a parent, you must be thinking that there has to be something wrong with your child. And you will be very curious about the reasons why his behavior changed. So I tried to talk to him and I tried to understand what are the problems which made him being like that. I found that there are 3 reasons which caused him to think about ending his own life. The first reason is that he often received bullying from his classmates, his friends. Although I don't really like to call them his friends. He was often bullied by his classmates because he could not socialize. And it was disturbing for them. Instead of trying to be a safe environment for my child so he could get along with them. They mock him, attack him, gave him much pressure, and by saying that he just have to die because he cannot blend into the mix. Actually, from what I read in newspapers, bullying has been the main problem that caused suicide case in this country. Whatever it's from, physical bullying, verbal bullying, and cyberbullying. The second reason that he just got broke up with his girlfriend, so it added more pressure to his feelings. As a young lad, it is normal to be frustrated over a failure in a relationship. But if you can't control yourself, you may take things too far. And the third and final reason is a toxic family. It is actually my fault that I didn't make the house a safe space for him. My wife and I often got into a heated argument, and we did it in front of him. It was a big mistake for us to do such thing. All of the reason culminated in one big factor, which pushed him to do suicide. So for every parent out there, please be aware of these problems. And as a father, I always try my best to keep an eye for him. I had noticed some of his unusual behavior when he was in that phase. At first, I didn't realize that there is something wrong with him. But as time went by, it became clear that his behavior has changed. The first behavior is that he became a loner. I take care of him since he was a baby. He is a cheerful lad who loves to be around the whole members of the family. Since he has problems, he rarely comes into the family room together with us. He always locked himself inside his bedroom and cried loudly. Sometimes I could hit him. And the second, when his mom and I fought over something, he often walked up to us and said that he'd rather die than listen into our argument. He said that he's tired of all of the things that happened to him. Please, as parents, you need to take this seriously. Every suicide threat from your child should be taken seriously, or you might end up regretting it. And the third, this is the most dangerous behavior of him. He felt like he got nothing to lose in his life, so he did anything recklessly. He drove fast, which not only could be dangerous for him, but also for others. He once mixed alcohol with a sachet of anti-mosquito lotion, so he could get the flying sensation and forgot his problem for a while. And he often hurt himself using dangerous items. Please, for parents, keep your child away from items that could potentially be used to harm themselves. I realized that I need to do something in order to at least reduce his problems so he wouldn't take his own life. I'm not an expert in helping someone with suicidal thoughts, so I asked everyone I know who I think would understand about solving this kind of problems. I got some suggestions from my friends and I applied it to make my son feel better. If you feel that your child has unusual behavior, as I mentioned before, please don't blame them and don't think that they are the most despicable thing in the world. Instead of doing those kind of things, you can give him mental support so they would reconsider everything. Never do something you might regret in the future. Sometimes they only need to be heard. But before you talk to them, you have to understand your own flesh and blood. It is necessary to avoid misunderstanding. You need to listen to them so you could know what happened inside that deep place called the heart. Let them know that you are the safest place they could go when they have problems. You also need to show that you love your child. Make them feel that they are important. At the time, I went to a mountain with my son so he could refresh his mind and forget his problem in a positive way. And if you feel hopeless and you might feel that you cannot do anything to help your son, your girl, your child, then please visit a psychologist. It is actually the best solution because they will give you good suggestions. They will give the right therapy, and they will answer the questions that make your child wonder why all of this is happening. I hope that a little advice from me could save many lives, because your children are too precious to lose their lives because of suicide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahendra, for the information. Next, please welcome our third panelist, Miss Olga Amanda Atsari. For Miss Olga, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. So today I'm gonna focus more on the statistics about suicide and how to prevent them from happening. Suicide is a global phenomenon that occurs across all age, economic, social, and racial and ethnic boundaries. It's a complex behavior, and it's not a response to just one problem that a person is experiencing. Some risk factors vary with age, gender, ethnic group, and may occur in combination or change over time. The World Health Organization estimates close to 800,000 people die by suicide every year, and that's one person every 40 seconds. It is the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29 years old globally. Suicides occur in all regions of the world, and in fact, it's 79% of global suicides happen in low and middle class income countries. Now, why do people attempt suicide? Unfortunately, there is no simple question to that. People die by suicide for a number of reasons, and majority of people, estimated at 90%, were suffering with an underlying mental illness, emotional disorder, and substance abuse problem at the time of their death. The most common underlying disorder is depression, as mentioned beforehand by Reynaldy, with an estimated 60% of suicides were people suffering from depression. Now I'm going to talk about how to respond to a person who is potentially suicidal. The first step is to recognize the warning sign that they gave. This warning sign consists of personal behavior, verbal and nonverbal communication, and the behavior was mentioned before by the other panelists. Second, take their suicidal statement seriously and trust your instinct. 50 to 75% that attempt suicide give some warning of their intention to their close friend or other family member. Third, get involved and listen actively. By listening to that person, we show our willingness and we show that we care about their problems. Next is to encourage that person to seek professional help. By actively involved in encouraging them to see a physician or mental health professional immediately. And individuals who attempted suicide often don't believe that they can be helped, so we have to do more by helping that person finding the mental health professional or taking them to take the treatment. The fifth step is to directly asking that person about their attempts on suicide. It might be scary, but the person needed to be asked whether or not they feel okay, or whether, how badly they think about taking their own lives. And by doing so, it is likely that they feel understood about the pain that they are in. And obviously, it will be a great relief if that person are willing to talk about their problem openly and with their approval. And if the answer is yes to whether or not they wanted to attempt suicide, take that response seriously and continue the suicide risk assessment question by asking whether or not they have planned, they have prepared for the material, or have set the time or place to do so. And the next thing after that is to not leave a person who is at high risk for suicide alone, even for a moment. Keep talking to that person, stay with them, or arrange other party, such as other family member or close friend that they feel comfortable around, and to stay with them. And to remove any firearms, drugs, or sharp objects that can be used to commit suicide around that person's vicinity. And lastly, if that person in crisis has taken some form of life-threatening action, get help immediately by taking them to the hospital yourself, calling an ambulance or emergency services such as 112. And that's all from me, and I hope all the informations that I gave would be a that's all from me, and I hope all the information that I gave could be helpful for others out there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Olga, for the information. Our last panelist is Mr. Bagus Ramadhan. For Mr. Bagus, the time is yours.
Thank you very much. So, good morning everyone. I'm Bagus Ramadhan of the Psychologist from Batu Medical Center. So, for the reasons, in psychological science, this topic is frequently discussed. Actually, those adolescents who commit to suicide didn't really want to do that. There are several aspects that makes them to do that. It's called theory of ecology. This theory discusses the process and context of human development by emphasizing environmental factors. There are several aspects that makes them to do that. It's called theory of ecology. This theory discusses the process and context of human development by emphasizing environmental factors. Here are several factors that drive adolescents to commit suicide based on the theory of ecology. Number one is family history. Individuals who live with family members who have attempted suicide are at high risk of committing suicide attempts. The existence of a history of problematic parents, poor relationship between parents and children are the main factors for adolescents to commit suicide. Number two is troubled family. Problematic families will affect adolescents' personalities. Adolescents' personalities development will be problematic, and in the end, they will find it difficult to solve a problem in the future. This is caused by the bad communication factor. Number three is peer. The age of adolescence is a sensitive period. Support from friends is an important factor for fulfilling emotional needs and emotional independence in the phase of adolescence development. Isolations from the group, breaking up with girlfriends or boyfriends, and lack of support from close friends are the main factors in adolescents commit to suicide. Now the behavior. There are several signs and behavior when adolescents commit to suicide. Number one is excessive sadness or moodiness. Long-lasting sadness and mood swings are the major risk factor for suicide. Number two is sudden calmness. Suddenly becoming calm after a period of depression or moodiness can be a sign that the adolescents have decision to end his or her life. Number three, withdrawal. Choosing to be alone and avoiding friends or social activities. Next is changes in personality or appearance. The adolescents who are considering suicide may exhibit a change in attitude or behavior, such as speaking or moving with unusual speed or slowness. Next, dangerous or self-harmful behavior. Potentially dangerous behavior, such as playing with sharp objects or any other dangerous objects. Next, depression and trauma. Break up in relationship, being isolated by the environment, and the lack of support from people around. And last, threatening or talking about suicide. The adolescents will often to talk about suicide. They will talk it in a relaxed manner, which they were actually saying seriously. However, we need to move quickly when we meet this indication or signs. And the last is for the solution. As the psychologist, we advise you to do some of these things. If your children or your adolescents are showing signs of suicidal thoughts, number one is talk and listen to them. Showing to them that you are care about their condition, talking and listening about their feelings without judgment. Help them to understand that tough times will pass. Don't be afraid to talk about suicide directly, and be open to talking about suicide thoughts. Number two is stay calm. You need to be calm and not make them feel guilty. This just will make the situation worse. Teens often don't talk to their parents or close person about their feelings or mental health because they're worried about the reaction they will receive. Therefore, you need to relax and show you are there to help and support them. And number three is look out for the warning signs. You need to keep an eye to the warning signs so you can move quickly when you meet those warning signs. Number four is agree on a safety plan together. You can make a safety plan together with your children or your adolescents. This safety plan will help them to stay safe and get through their hardest moments. But if the condition is getting worse, it's time to call the professional help. You can take your children to the psychologist, and we will do the therapy for suicide. Or maybe you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bagus, for the information. Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the panelists and the informations we got, we can draw a line or we can draw a conclusion that suicidal behavior is a real thing. It is dangerous and needs soon treatment. Suicidal behavior occurs across age and ethnicity. It can happen to everyone in this world. So please mind and be aware of your surrounding. Be kind, be grateful, don't be apathetic, and treat people with kindness. Thank you very much for the panelists, and thank you very much for the participants for your great participation. I am Alhan, signing off and go back to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Alhan. Now, we have come to an end of the panel discussion. We have learned a lot about suicidal behavior delivered by our amazing panelists. Thank you for delivering such important discussion so that we can deepen our knowledge about the prevention and the solution to suicidal behavior. Once again, we are very grateful for your participation in this event. Have a nice day, everyone.